real quick.
All right, everybody. Thanks. Welcome back to Books with Friends. Second episode. We're over here at Caleb's apartment, his studio space. He's got a...
the nest.
He calls it the nest.
The nest. That's where we're at.
He's got a art show coming up. Where is it at again?
It is at Hidden Noise Art Gallery in Irvington, Indianapolis.
Indianapolis. What's the title of it?
The title of this exhibition will be called Controlled Chaos.
Oh, shit. Controlled Chaos. Actually, we got his book. Was this the premise to the... Is this the book that made you title your art exhibition?
In a way, yes. After making this book, I kind of realized controlling the chaos was my approach to painting and creating.
Awesome.
Therefore, understanding that and finding that, I'd like to exhibit the controlled chaos.
Yeah, awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, we're going to be going through this book a little bit today. It's a book that Caleb illustrated and wrote himself. A lot of news clippings and things of that nature. So we'll get into that a little bit more. Also joining us is Saul Alvarez from the last podcast from Books with Friends with Jameson and Power.
Jamie.
This time we got some
Black Acre
beer.
from Black Acre Brewery.
I like
spicy one.
I like the title of your book, Controlled Chaos. I think it's really ironic. You know, it's like the opposites of how can you control chaos?
Yep.
You bound this yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Made that. I mean, I bought the materials, but I bound that. Whoa. Yeah. I like that. That was nice.
That was
yeah.
Tame Impala. Anybody that doesn't know Tame Impala, man.
That was like a sign. That's good.
I like
sign,
that. Exactly.
dude.
Yeah. Seriously though, like that's kind of how life is. Sometimes it's ironic, and it is very chaotic. And controlling the chaos is sometimes irony in itself.
Do you think you can really control chaos, or do you think you can just go with it?
I think it's more of like an uncontrolled chaos. But when I make you kind of have to work with the chaos. Yeah. Therefore, I'm not necessarily controlling it. I'm just using it. Going with the flow of like the chaos that I put down on that paper.
I feel like that's like a lot of times when like, especially in life, I feel like you try to capture a lot of like meaningful things in your art, and like one thing that I've noticed is like in life especially, like people get stressed out about situations and like like this happened at your job and now like your car broke down and like this or that, but in the end of the day, like things are gonna continue to happen and it's up to you how to react.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And so like it's really important, I think, as you grow and mature, to realize that you can't control things, but you can like find out how to use them to your benefit.
Absolutely.
I think is interesting is something that gets kind of brought up a lot is what is the artist mentality for you? So artist mentality basically saying that
welcome to East Washington Street.
I hope they're okay. The artist mentality meaning that, I mean, you can define it in your own terms, but I'll give you like what I'm thinking in my head is the artist mentality meaning that nothing you ever do is necessarily good enough, right? You always think you can do better. And if you didn't, then you just stop. You'd think that everything you did was great, right? So like there has to be an itch somewhere that you're like, I can do better than the last piece I did.
Absolutely.
So when finding fulfillment, when finding enjoyment in that art,
yes.
Do you, like, when you're creating it, you're making something to the best of your ability, but do you know, like, looking back, you're like, I could do something better than what I'm even doing right now?
Yeah.
How do you get motivated to make the next piece? You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay. It's just kind of like, I hate to say it, it's life, because, like, that's, a lot of people say, oh, it's just life. But life, it takes your whole lifetime to master your own life. Same with, like, as an artist, no matter if you're a visual artist or a musician or a dancer or whatever art you do, I mean, you can be a mathematician if you're geeking out about math. Like you're an artist, you're a mathematician. You always evolve and you always grow older and grow wiser, and your approaches to life change, your approaches to thinking change, and you level up in aspects like that. Where I could look at a painting that I've made and want to recreate that, and I would make it completely different, in a year, because I've learned new things. I've made more paintings. New techniques, new styles. Like you kind of always evolve, and
So progression.
Absolutely.
Really.
And like, I mean, you look at like Pablo Picasso, like his most notable works or his most famous works that like everyone knows is his Cubism movement. And that was, you know, somewhat later in his life, but he has so much more paintings before that and after that.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know him for his weird style of, you know, experimentation.
Yeah.
But that was him evolving and changing as an artist, you know, and realizing in the game, like, it's time to like change things up.
Yeah.
So
started to get. So, one story I was talking to Saul about this a while back, but it's a really cool story that I was reading one of the books. I don't remember what book it was, but it was about Pablo Picasso. He was outside of a coffee shop and he was doodling on a napkin, right? And he's sitting there doodling it, and he gets up, he leaves, he crumbles it up, he gets up and he leaves, he throws it away. Some lady who saw him draw it, she knew who he was. She pulls it out of the trash can, right? And she goes up to him. She goes, "Hey, can you sign this for me?" And he's like, for $20,000, I can sign it for you. She's like, "What do you mean you scribbled it in 5 minutes? What are you talking about?" He's like, "No, that took me my entire life to scribble that. It wasn't just in 5 minutes." Yeah. So like that just digress a little bit on Picasso, but I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I think, and like you said, the progression that makes total sense. You know,
absolutely.
You know, why do anything if
you don't plan
back,
on getting better at it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
so everything's a study. Everything's a work of art. I mean,
absolutely.
Saul's a musical artist. I mean, it's probably the similar process. You know that everything you're doing is a stepping stone to getting where you want to go.
Definitely. I think that like one thing that's really important in creation and in like just life in general, is that like you're always learning, you know. And I think it's there's probably some people that think that they got to a point where there's nothing left that they can like learn, you know. And that's kind of when you fail at like whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
You think you're good enough, you know, because like you said, everything like you can always be better.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that I've noticed with my production is every time I produce a new song or like I make a new beat, it's my favorite every time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know if you can relate with that, like with your pieces, but it's funny to see how like you thought you were good at something until you make something else and you're like, oh, like now I'm good, and then like it just keeps on, you know, it just
you look back like damn, that wasn't actually that good.
Yeah,
now this
that
one was
really
really good.
Yeah, it was
exactly. And I feel like it'll just keep on as long as you keep, you know, progressing and like putting in that type of work. That like that's just gonna keep on happening.
Yeah,
you know, that's like the road that you decide to take is the road of like, you know, especially nowadays there's so much information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know about you personally, like exactly, man. I YouTube so much stuff. I Google things like techniques or certain ways to get a certain sound that I didn't know how to like produce.
You can find it.
Yeah, man, and it's just like I'm never cut off to like I don't like handicap myself because like it's the year of the iPhone, man.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody,
every
you
year.
You got Google. You got everything. You know.
Yeah, you have all the tools you need to really grow.
Absolutely.
All right, so kind of circling back to this book here. I know you talked about your kind of the theme of the motivation. What artists do you really pull from in this, and not just in this, but what are your all-time artists that you really look up to? And what are your inspirations that you pull from?
So I think first and foremost I have to thank Ralph Steadman. If you guys aren't familiar with him, he was the illustrator for Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. He worked with Dr. Hunter S. Thompson quite often. But he also, you know, did other illustrations in other books. He works for Flying Dog Brewery, you know, designs their beer labels and whatnot.
Oh,
but I watched this video like my freshman year of art school, and I was completely blown away because this was the first time I was like actually taking art seriously. I was like looking for inspiration and like trying to do studies and things like that. And I pulled up Stedman's video, and it's in his studio, and he's drawing, and pretty much he's talking, starting it off, and he's like, so I don't like to use a pencil because it just creates boundaries. I like to work with the ink, and like the ink itself, and exploring that creativity is where like it's fun. And that word stuck with me, fun, because like you have fun when you're being creative. When you plan something out, like this drawing, you sketch it out, and like, oh, now I have to ink it. Now I gotta cut. It just becomes like a job, and I don't like that. Stedman made working fun because he would throw an ink at a piece of paper and look at it and say, "Oh, that looks like a face. We're gonna go with a face. Like, it's two faces because it looks like, you know, like he would work with whatever he put down on the paper, and that inspired his next move. So that became a big influence on me.
So is that a part of your process?
Absolutely.
Kind of incorporated that.
Yeah,
into your
it
own
slowly
style?
kind of worked its way in because I admired his splats and drips and just different effects that I would get, and like the psychological connections you would get to that. It creates a different feeling. You know, it's not easy, and it's kind of disturbing when you see drips or scratches. Like, it's kind of, it gives you a state of mind. So I really enjoyed that. Obviously Picasso, big influence. Just kind of what he did with the game. He just changed this world, honestly. George Condo has been a really big influence on me lately. Just the way he draws in portraits, especially.
Is he just? I don't know enough about him.
So George Condo is probably most I don't want to say most recognizable work, but his most popular work was when he designed My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy for Kanye West. He did the paintings for that. But pretty much he is a classical painter and was trained in all classical ways and studied all of his favorite artists throughout the centuries. And he found that as he learned how to paint like everybody, he acquired those skills. But when he got to Picasso and how he changed the kind of the art world, and Picasso's quoted, you know, with this, how it took him, I think it was 20 years to paint like Rembrandt, but it took him the rest of his life to paint like a child. And Kondo recognized that and understood that, and he said, I want to paint something that your kid couldn't paint, but it looks like your kid made it, but it's too good for your kid, you know? Like, he was on that level.
That's cool.
So, like,
that's dope.
And he has that childlike kind of scratch and drawing. Same with Basquiat, another influence. Like, it's very uneasy, and it's kind of, I don't know how you would, it's just kind of like, it's kind of scratchy and
rough
crappy. And like, it looks like there's no thought to it, but when you admire like the work as a whole, you realize like, damn, like that kind of took some like thinking to like get that effects. Because like you can put a line on a paper, but the way you apply that line, you know, it's how just the touch of the artist, I guess. That's
what you said earlier about like the pencil and the ink, right?
Okay.
Do you think that like when people like a pencil almost handicaps because you can erase it? You know what I mean? Like you can draw something out, and then like, but if you can erase it, then you're just gonna keep on trying until like it looks exactly how like you imagined it. Versus if you do it with ink, you're stuck with what you have, and so like you can.
I can definitely see it being a handicap in an artist who wants to be expressive. Someone who wants to be a little more spontaneous, but not a lot of artists are like that. A lot of people are more planning and more accurate and precise and technical.
I'm not an artist, but when I worked on my paintings, that's how I sketched it.
Or you can even tell by notes, writing. Like, some people like to keep things clean and precise. Like, my notebook is just notes, like jumbled on top of each other, and like different, you know, inks and stuff, just because like that's my process. It's really kind of crappy, but I like it, you know. So
that works for art.
Exactly. That's how I think, you know. That's my mind.
Awesome. Well, we'll go into the beginning of it, which I'll
09090909. Okay. Well, now
dude,
they know
I
my
can
phone.
hack, bro.
You
don't even have to
You
go.
got
You don't
it.
have to type in the password to go to the camera.
Oh, you're right.
So this first page.
Smarter than
here.
you look, Eric.
So, looking at the book, man, that was like one of those compliments.
FBI sketch.
You're in SNL right now.
Man, that's like one of those compliments where you like undermine it with some shit. You're like, hey man, you're pretty good for a girl.
For a wee baby.
What are you, a girl or something?
So in this book, used a lot of color, a lot of blue, a lot of red, and a lot of black.
Yes.
Is there a reason behind that? Is it because blue is opposite of red? Is that the contrast? I mean, do you look when you make something? Do you look at the color wheel? Do you do something like that, or is it more just like you said? Do you like to be more chaotic? Do you like to be like, that looks fucking good, that looks good, that looks good? You're not like, oh, do I need to have a different tone here because it's the opposite, or they're like corresponding on that color wheel? What's that process kind of like for you?
Color is a really interesting theory. There's a lot of color theories because the color wheel, things match up or are opposite, complementary. They work well with each other, just by kind of law. Like that's just how things work. But through my, I guess, evolution of painting and creating, I realized like my palette is very particular. I do enjoy a lot of blacks and a lot of grays, and I especially like contrast. So I like having dark darks against white whites. And as I slowly put color into my work, I realized the primary colors of just red, yellow, and blue are just badass. Like they're sweet, you know what I mean? Like, and there's a reason why like a lot of artists previously like messed with those. Like Mondrian, like he had some really cool paintings. You look at Andy Warhol, like he had like some very popular art. His pop art was pop art because of its iconography and also its color scheme. So I've noticed myself gravitating a lot of red and blue and blacks, yellow occasionally. But for some reason, the red and blue color scheme is like my ultimate favorite. I don't know if it's reminds me of like a nostalgic, like 80s, like 3-dimensional like glasses where it's like supposed to be 3-dimensional and psychedelic or what. I don't know what it is and what I enjoy about it, but I really enjoy a red and blue color scheme. For some reason, I have yet to figure it out, but like I'm still gonna keep painting it. Like,
no, it looks
even some of like my newer paintings, like I've just been adapting those colors into it, and like they're looking nice. Like I enjoy it. So I guess I don't know where it came from or what really sparked it, but I've been using those colors for a while.
Yeah. The opening page here, and I'll clip it in, but so it all started in 1994. Is that? Yeah. I mean, I know it's the year you're born.
Yes.
Caleb was born on 9/11 even.
That's right.
So,
yes.
Devil child.
A lot of people called me a terrorist on my birthday, which is like disappointing.
So, a question that brings up for me, pursuing art is not an easy thing, and I know, there's not a lot of, I haven't given a big backstory, but we all went to middle school together. Saul and I went to elementary school together through high school.
Yeah.
And we're friends now at 23, 22 years old.
I'm 22, he's 23.
I'm 22, bro. What the fuck?
Okay. So I just,
you know my birthday, man. Dude.
I'm 35.
Bro.
Bro, you have the same birthday. Eric has the same birthday as my mom.
Yeah, that's right.
Shout out to my mom.
Shout out to the moms.
So, it's hard. There's probably not a definitive answer on this. Like, when did you know that you really were going to take the risk? But, like, at some point, you had to make a decision where you're like, I'm going to go for this. And I know the path is tough. And I know that it's not going to be an easy thing to pursue. But
Absolutely.
I'm choosing it because this is what I want to do. How hard of a decision was that to make? I know there's a lot of influences on there. You have teachers, you have parents, you have friends, you have people that are looking out for your well-being. And choosing this path is obviously not easy, Yeah. So how big of a role did each one of those people play in that? And then at what point? I know you had to have a decision at some point where you just totally committed. So what was that all like? It's not an easy thing to do,
I've been drawing since I was a kid, and I feel like ever since I picked up a pen or like a crayon, I was really influenced by my uncle Daniel. I grew up with him. He's only 4 years older than me, so he was pretty much like an older brother.
Okay.
And I grew up at my grandparents' house, so I was always around him. And he always drew. And I remember at a young age just trying to like draw what he was drawing. So that influenced me a lot. And I have distinct memories of being back in like 4th grade with my like best friends at the time, Matthew and Casey. And we would have tech decks, and we'd be skateboarding after school and stuff, but I would try to like draw those graphics. And I remember that being like a monumental, like, hey, like, I really like drawing. Like that's a hobby of mine. I enjoyed it. High school, I liked drawing. I didn't do it much just because I was so involved in sports. But really it was once I graduated, went to Ivy Tech, and I was taking classes there, and I was actually in my English class. So I wasn't even in art class. I was in my English class, and I was drawing, this really weird like character. And he was all goofy with teeth, all messed up and jagged and eyes. And I was supposed to be doing homework, and I remember my teacher like came up to me and she's like, "Caleb, like, what are you drawing?" And I was like, I don't know. It's like a guy, I think. Like, I don't know what I'm drawing. I'm just drawing. And she like seemed like really interested. And she's like, that's like really like interesting. Like you should maybe look into like an art school. And it never crossed my mind until that point.
Really?
Well, I was like,
wow,
maybe like you're right. Like,
so it wasn't until after you graduated high school.
Yeah, like that's the reason I went to
Ivy
Ivy Tech was because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no plans. I just was kind of like, I got to go to school. So it was there, and not even I had an art history, so not even my art history teacher influenced me. It was my English teacher, and it was just kind of her like brutal honesty. It was like, hey, like maybe you should like you're kind of good at that. Maybe you should go check it out. And I applied at Heron, and I got in, and like the next semester I was in an art school, which was awesome. So she was a really big influence. And then once I got to art school, I think it just became like a personal kind of hunger because I was looking at my drawings and I was looking at my classmates and looking at just people's out in the hallway and was like, wow, like there's some really talented people here. And like, I know I can get there, like I just know like I don't stop. So like if I'm going to put my mind to it, like let's start now and let's do it. And
would you say you're competitive?
Absolutely.
So when you're looking at other people's artwork, are you like, I could do that better than you?
No.
Is it that kind of competitive? Is that what drives you, or are you just competitive in the sense against yourself? I know
it's against yourself. Absolutely. I mean, you're your own worst enemy. Yeah. And but I do get influenced by other artists, and I do get turned off by other artists with their approach or their mentality or things like that. But I like to say like mentality, most importantly, influences me. Not necessarily work because like everybody's got their own ways through life and how they create and what they make, but I do look at other artists. I don't want to say like it's what was the word you just said? It's I'm not comparing, but I'm just kind of like inspired, or I'm using them as like a level where I should be, or where okay, I'm past that, maybe I need to work on this.
You know what you like, you know what you don't like. Certain pieces, and you take that and use it to your own.
And exactly. I mean, there's certain painters now that like they can paint like tremendous, and like they can paint portraits beautiful, and like there's nothing, it looks like someone took a photo, but that doesn't influence me. Like that's not creative.
You like messy. You like the
I like
chaos.
creativity.
Yeah.
I like creativity.
So would you say chaos for you does that does that bring on creativity? Like if you, so in some of these, and we can get into them a little bit later, but like some of these, you put ink down, you put a paint down, at first it's kind of chaos, right? I remember when we were like, when I was young, we used to do like the ink blobs where you had to fold a piece of paper in half and you put the colors and you go like this, right?
Yeah.
But for you, taking that image that you get from that randomness, the dots you put on there, and creating something, I'm not saying that in a bad way. I'm just saying that like defining it more. That's what it's controlled chaos, controlling the randomness of all of that stuff. Yeah. And so that feeds you really. Being able to create something from the randomness, the chaos, the everything, right?
It's funny you said that because I made a book last year with just ink blot tests in it.
Oh really?
And on the back of each page, I asked, "What did you see?" And I put that up in Heron, up in like the lobby, and it's just full of responses from like kids that would awesome. Just wrote what they said. And it is the beauty in the chaos. Like you can't, it's beauty in life, like the irony of life. Like it goes back, it's just kind of like a circle. Like you can't always plan, because if you plan, like your plans would get let down and you might be disappointed. So for me, I would rather not plan. I would rather just go with it, and whatever happens. A lot of my work, there's a lot of mistakes in there. They don't look like mistakes, but they are. And I found that those mistakes are like what really made that painting like really interesting, or what made it really, it added that that flair, that like
that realism.
Like it was an accident, and it looks like it, and like you couldn't have purposely made that little accident mark, like you had to accidentally make that mark.
That's what I enjoy about like your stuff, because like what you just said, if you like up, you make it go with it. So like earlier we were saying about like chaos in life, is like, is it really a mistake if you learn from it? All right. Like, I feel like the only real mistakes you make are the ones that you don't learn from.
Exactly.
And it takes I would say it takes a certain sense of like maturity to understand that like you're gonna fuck up, nothing is perfect. You know, not even perfection is perfect. You know, and so like that's one thing I really enjoy when you show me some of your pieces is like just how like imperfectly perfect it is.
Yeah.
You know,
that's controlled
chaos. Perfectly perfect. Yeah, controlled the chaos. So I always enjoy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's really great.
I appreciate it.
Would you say that, you know, this approach, this idea that we've been talking about with the randomness of ink blobs, defining it after the fact it's happened, you know, is that an approach you take in your life? Is that the way that you live your life, essentially? You know what I mean? Like not, you know, like random things happen, right? You try not to plan so much. If something comes up, you're gonna do it, and then later define it, later think about it, right? That's what I get when I look at your pieces, right? You throw something down, and it takes time to really think about and understand what that is to you. So, are you a reflective guy? After you do something, I'm sure you are. Like just by looking at your art, like you throw something down, and then later you define it. You know, I mean, I don't know if it's how much later that is, but it seems like when something would happen to you, you know, like random things, whatever. I mean, life is essentially a lotto ticket. You know.
Yeah.
You know, you later define it. You later look back on it, and then you start to kind of paint a picture of what that was to you and how it changed where you are now.
Yes.
It's all a building process.
Let's say, just, you know, throwing this out there tonight, you know, I said something to piss you off, and you're really upset, and you're going to say whatever comes to your mind, or you're going to do whatever you do, and then tomorrow you're going to think about, damn, I shouldn't have done that, or why did I say that, or whatever. Same with these paintings. Like, even though like I necessarily might not know what it is that I'm painting, it's just the fact that like it's the act that I'm painting, and I'm painting right now because I'm tired, or I'm really happy, or I'm sad. Like I'm painting. That's what's important right now to me, is the fact that I'm actively doing something. I can think about it tomorrow or next week, you know.
Yeah.
Or, you know, years later, I look in my closet and I have all my paintings from the past few years. I'm like, wow, like at least I was doing something.
Act first.
Yeah. And, you know, think later. I mean, you're supposed to think first and then act later.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
I mean, that for me, like, that's like I said, how you kind of approach life. I'm not perfect. I'm far from that.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the work coincides with how I approach life, and I'm kind of just with the flow. And whatever comes in my way, like, I'm going to deal with it. And I'm gonna just move forward, you know, because I'm learning. I'm mastering my life, so I got a long time to go, you know.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, dude.
I need some more beer.
Saul needs a refill.
We got the.
Saul's taking a risky move. He's got
the real
portion of his beer remaining in his cup.
Oh, you better. You need to wash that out, man.
Saul's about to mix in a new beer
into
it's a stout, and he's gonna mix in something else.
It's a brown ale.
This is a stout too.
No, that's a brown ale.
Brown ale.
It's alright. I did it too, so.
I'm gonna.
Question real quick. I'm sorry, Eric.
No, dude, go ahead.
All right. So the other day, someone at work asked me. They're like, okay, so when songs are made, are the lyrics made first and then the song, or is the song made first and then the lyrics? And
That's a good question.
I think it depends on the artist, honestly.
I agree.
But I think that for the most part, and Eric, you could weigh in on this too, because you know you're in a band.
Yeah.
So for you guys, would you guys make the music first and then the lyrics, or sometimes would you guys prefer to have the lyrics laid out first and then make a song around it?
This was kind of the approach that I like taking the most. Was we shortly became an instrumental band after we first formed, right? We kind of, singing wasn't working out for us exactly, and we wanted to be an instrumental band. We wanted to kind of explore what that was going to be like. And then coming back to having a band with vocals, it was much more based around the music itself, because I think there's a certain beauty in music in where it can pull, and it's any art really, and any form of expressiveness, is it can pull emotions that no words could ever describe. Nothing that you could ever say to somebody would make you feel the way a song does.
Absolutely.
And the right song and the right progression it's just not possible. So I think the chords and the song and the progression behind the words matters more to me, because it pulls the feeling. Yeah, more than the words. And that's just me coming from a band that was an instrumental band for a long time. I was able to start to feel what that music was like, and develop the lyrics afterwards, because I think the music has more power than words do. I do.
That's what I said.
I think it does. Yeah.
I said that, like, you know, typically I'm assuming for like most people that they listen to like the music first, and then based on the music and how it makes them feel, you know, the vibe that it gives off, then they decide to write how it makes them feel, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, also, I'm guessing that kind of, like, transcends into, like, what you make, you know? You're kind of putting the, like, lyrics down on paper, but in,
the colors, the splats are the music, and then
illustrative
you're
Yeah.
coming back in is the lyrics.
You feel the vibes,
You define it later,
then you put it down.
because music without any words is just
Absolutely.
it's hard to define it, right? If you were listening to like I don't know, if you were listening to an album that had no words over it, you wouldn't really exactly you'd kind of get a feeling, but it's not defined, right? It's not controlled.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I guess it's a good circle back into what it is.
Illustrate the vibes.
Illustrate the vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, that I feel like you were saying with music, man, even like movies, like there's certain movies that like I can watch and like I might be close to crying, you know, Big Fish being one of them. But like just there's movies, same with sounds, like music, like there's music that like just, man, like that's the kind of music like I want to go out to, you know, like that's like music, man. Like same with these paintings, with the paintings I've been making recently, I've been working a lot more on like reducing the use of like text and font, because with text and font, like I'm telling you something and like you're reading it, and like it's that simple. Whereas like if I show you a painting with no font or no text, like you have to do the reading. It's not me telling you what to think or what to feel. Like you have to feel it.
Yeah.
And
So
I think
become an instrumental band. As a
yeah,
painter.
and like yeah, but I mean like yeah, like I
mean,
feel like
I guess not all paintings have text on them, but
it's
if they're so structured, if they're structured enough, you know what the fuck's going on. Right?
yeah,
But
absolutely.
That's the beautiful thing about like art, you know, like whatever the median may be, is that like it's whatever it means to you, you know.
Exactly.
Like there's so many songs that you think are about like you're beautiful, you know. I read somewhere that song's about like drug addiction. Like somebody is
Hey, bro,
dude's
someone
friend
that's
was a
listening to
drug
that is
addict.
addicted to
It's
drugs.
like,
They,
you're
I mean, or
beautiful,
something.
it's
Yeah.
true. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and nobody really, I mean, I didn't interpret it that way,
Yeah,
but
but
that's
you
the way
can. Absolutely.
yeah, and I think that's awesome. I think that's like that's when things are great, for real, you know?
Yeah, of course.
And so that's almost like that's another thing I really enjoy about your work, is that, I mean, what it means, like what I see and what I get from it isn't necessarily what he gets from it, you know, based off of like other pieces that like you're looking at what you're looking at, you know. And I mean, it's the chaoticness in it, you know, that like really like brings out each individual's own perspective on your work.
So, how much do you hate categories, right? So, like, if I was someone coming to your art studio, I knew nothing about art, I might label you as an abstract artist. Are you okay with that? Do you not like it? Do you think you're something different? I mean, obviously, you probably don't like categories, just based on things we've talked about. I mean, categories are necessary, right, to define in music genres, to define what it just helps people figure out what is happening.
Absolutely.
So would you say you're abstract? Would you say it's I don't know all the genres in art, but
yeah, and I the only reason I would use categories is to describe someone, like what I paint, because someone's like, oh, you're a painter, what do you paint? It's like
to help someone
I don't know what I paint, honestly. Like I just paint shit, like it's weird. But I use categories to like help describe it or explain it. And the categories I guess I would use for my work would be like abstract surrealism.
Okay.
Expressionism is a big one. I like to be expressive. But I don't know if there is, I mean, maybe there is a category for this. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the work that I've been making, I feel like I'm tapping into those categories that influence me. and I'm analyzing, interpreting all of those, and like this is what I'm putting out from that. So I don't know what to call some of my work.
There's this short book called "Steal Like an Artist." Yeah, my ex-girlfriend was trying on clothes. I read the whole thing, and like it was really cool because it was basically saying that nowadays there's no such thing as an original thought. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like something inspires you to create whatever, as original as it is. Like you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like you got it from somewhere, and like what Eric just asked about, you know, the category that like you would put yourself in, and like you said, you know, expressionism, realism,
surrealism, abstract.
Had like 3 beers. And,
it's alright.
Yeah, it's all good.
But I feel like when you're making it though, you're not really thinking about that, right?
Absolutely
It's
not.
not like you're like, okay, I'm gonna do 20% abstract. I'm gonna do 30%. You know.
It's too structured, man.
Yeah. Like you just like naturally know when like that's enough of that, and I'm gonna do this because like that's me, you know. So
to add on to that, steal like an artist. I remember having an assignment back in art school where we were supposed to replicate a master's painting, but it was a charcoal drawing. So I mean, you had to blend it, make it look like the painting that you chose. And I'm ashamed that I don't remember the artist that I chose, but I picked this still life with a skull and a wine bottle, and it was like in like a cutout of like a wall. And it was probably one of my favorite drawings of that freshman year. Probably one of the best drawings I had. But it was because I copied a master artist. I had to physically paint and mix, or not paint, but draw and replicate this painting that someone had already made. And in that process, I learned how to draw like him. Dr. Hunter S. Thompson, I'm pretty sure, type wrote The Great Gatsby, like so many different times.
Yeah,
and
know what it felt like to write
exactly. And because he did that, he knew what it was like to write like John F. Fitzgerald. And I think that's really important. And a lot of artists that I look up to have done studies of artists that they were influenced by. And by doing that influenced their style even further, because they painted like Picasso, and now they have a Picasso-esque approach. So yeah, that is the point. I mean, it's 2018. Everything's already been done. It's time to reinvent.
What is a study to you? You mentioned studies when you're talking about stuff. Is a study you stealing from other artists and figuring out how it plays into your overall style? What is a study to you?
A study to me is, let's say, taking a drawing or a painting by an artist and then either replicating that drawing as best as your ability, or approaching your drawing in the style that they approached it.
Okay. Which way do you normally take it? Do you usually use your approach, or do you try to copy and then see what you can pull from them later?
I try to use their approach and paint and draw / in my way, but I like to use like whatever key points or focus that I think made that drawing or painting particular. For example, George Condo, the way he illustrates faces and eyes and just the shapes and movements of those, I like to try to use that in my drawings, where I tell myself before, okay, think about George Condo. What would George Condo do? So I'm gonna try to paint like that, but it's my painting, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I approached it in a method that he had used, which made
not your own method
different.
But then you grow from those. So like
exactly,
you do
you
studies.
learn from it.
So you consciously choose to do a study, right? Like you're like, I'm gonna do a study on this person.
Yep.
You go in thinking you know that you're gonna pull something out of that, right?
Yes.
Like you're gonna pull a certain style or a certain technique out of that. So it's a decision you have to make, right? It's not like you don't stumble upon it. You're like, I want a piece of what this guy's got, and I'm gonna do a study on it so I can take it and use it to my own stuff.
Yes, and I think
that's really cool. I think it's I mean, it pulls exactly back to steal like an artist, right? You don't want to exactly steal. Like stealing is not.
Learn from it.
Exactly. That's how you use inspiration, right?
You're absorbing what you want from that.
Mm-hmm.
you know, obviously I'm not like trying to paint and be the next Picasso.
Yeah.
I'm learning from Picasso because he was such a big influence on the world.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make like a short point
Because
so one thing that that can just relate to all kinds of art is that, like, all right, so in music, right, when a certain style is developed, there will always be a wave, right? So like there's a new type of sound that comes out, and then you hear
like
a bunch
Migos
of the triplet flow, and like whatever, but but like that'll be done, right?
It'll
exactly. But during that era, there's not gonna be any artists that really become great or become, you know, one of the like a Jay-Z or an Eminem or a Lil Wayne. And like, notice how
you think all those were built on certain trends that were happening? Those are the guys that kind of pulled from what was happening at the time.
They're the ones that started new things. Like, notice how all those three artists that I just mentioned are so different. Yeah, even Migos, okay?
That's why I mentioned them,
Migos doesn't sound like Jay-Z. Jay-Z doesn't sound like Eminem. Eminem doesn't sound like Lil Wayne. Not in that particular order.
No.
But I'm just saying, those are the, you know, we're talking about hip-hop right now. Those are the greats, some of the greats in hip-hop.
Influencers,
Exactly. Yeah. But at the same time, each and every single one of those artists were inspired by the people that came before them. Mm-hmm. They took what they liked, they made it their own. Yeah. You know?
So you're hip-hop, right? And you make a lot of beats. Do you suggest doing studies for like Caleb does studies of artists? Do you think people that are making beats, people that are doing hip hop, doing rap, should they do studies of bands? Would that help them grow? Because I don't know if that. When I was in a band, we didn't do that type of thing. We didn't like, hey, we're gonna make a song that's kind of like a Strokes song, but not for.
Do you think that would have helped?
It could have. I mean, it definitely could have. It could help you adopt different styles. That way, your influences. Like, you can be influenced by people, but then it's a different thing of like. Really doing what they did and understanding what they're doing and then applying it. It's totally different.
Do you think that you guys didn't do that because all of you listened to rock music before?
Yeah, I think we did, but like...
You don't think that like the type of music you guys, the bands you guys listen to influenced the music you guys make?
It absolutely did, but I think there's a difference between like being influenced and doing a study on somebody, right? Like doing a study is trying to mimic or adopt in some way their style and understand what they were doing and understand why they were doing it, and then you can apply that later. So like different skills, different chords, different whatever whatever we're talking about. Art's very broad,
right there,
but I mean maybe I'm just spitballing here, but maybe do you think that'd be a good idea if you were super influenced by Jay-Z, should you I'm gonna make a song that sounds just like Jay-Z, but it's gonna have my flavor in it, not to release it, but to gain that knowledge.
That's the most important thing right there. Not releasing.
Yeah.
The studies aren't made a lot of times for people to see. They're for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know.
To learn the process. I think it would have helped with your workflow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know exactly how you guys wrote the songs. I'm sure in the beginning it was really time consuming.
Oh, definitely.
I'm sure you guys went.
But we would have 8 hour straight band practice.
Okay, so let's say just out of the blue, you guys decided to just play a Strokes song. You guys played the Strokes song. You sang every lyric. You played every chord right. Do you think that would have changed the music you made after that?
Yeah, I potentially. I mean, it's hard to say, but I think it definitely could have, because we would have put our own flavor on it.
Absolutely.
And that's essentially what a study is. So,
and I think that's the
in retrospect, looking back, we didn't like cover bands because cover bands weren't making their own stuff.
Absolutely.
Bands are different.
But at the same time, singing a Strokes song as a band is us doing a cover of them. It's us adopting their style. So are cover bands even bad? Because maybe eventually cover bands are the bands that actually can mold and melt a bunch of flavors together to make something new. Are those the new innovators? I don't know. I don't know. But
maybe. Sorry, bands out there.
Yeah.
If I offended you.
No, I don't know. I mean, we were never a cover band because we didn't like that they were just copying. We like to create stuff, just like you like to create your own art. You don't want to copy other people.
That's the thing, man. Like it's not like all right, the skull painting that he was talking about that he like remade. It's not like he made like an exhibition of a bunch of things that he's like redrawn of like things that like, you know, things that he looked up to. You know, you see it, and it's like practicing, man. It's like people that play sports, you know. How many people like did Michael Jordan's moves, you know, to get better at basketball?
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's not. They're not gonna be Michael.
Yeah.
You know.
But
they're gonna get better from practicing what they. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
You learn from the people that came before you, and like you take that inspiration and you make it your own. You know, that's like what modern day art is now. Okay. You know, I mean, personally, that's what I believe. Like, I've remade songs that I've heard just to know how they make it. You know, to learn the
you're doing a study.
process.
You're doing a study.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
And it's not like like especially I like in like music, you can't like put that out. Because I mean, everybody's gonna know like
oh, you're trying to rip them off.
Yeah,
they're gonna think you're trying to pull something.
That's from that. That's you know, and I mean, it's like especially you'll get sued real quick.
Oh yeah,
you know, for like
keep
taking
yourself. You don't get sued if you release
just for your own
practice.
You know,
Exactly.
your own practice.
Exactly.
And stuff to make yourself better.
Yeah. We're not super off topic actually. This is kind of the direction I wanted to go in, but like we were talking. Yeah, we were talking about inspiration, and I know you mentioned some of the inspiration, but like behind the books, man, there's got to be a deeper thing than just like controlling chaos, right? There's got to be something that you are getting at. What's behind it, you know? And I know you're artistic, but being artistic and have nothing to say is totally different than being artistic and having something to say.
Absolutely.
You know, so what? You know,
what's up?
Why? Why the books? Why making something that you want people to think? You know, the deeper side of it is, you know, why don't you want words? You know, do you want to spread art? Do you want to kind of pull people back from the phone, from the picture? Or, you know what I mean? From the normal. I mean, back in the day, right? Art was huge. Art was a big form of expression, but then technology starts to take place, and soon automation will start to take place, right? Robots take over jobs, stuff like that, and something that I foresee in the future is an explosion again, like the Renaissance, man, of art and music and plays and things that are human, right?
Yes.
Doing a factory job is not a human job; it's a robot job. Yeah. Now that we know what robots are, but I don't even think before was a human job. So. Are you trying to spread what are humans really capable of, and what is, so when you look at art, I'm going all over the place, but when you look at art, when you look at things, you're like, okay, only a human can do this, right? I don't know if monkeys do art. I don't think they do, right?
I think
what is the what are you trying to get out? You know, what's the inspiration? We're trying to feed people.
So, to quote Picasso again. I don't know his exact quote, and I've probably been like messing up his quotes. So like, don't quote me, people.
Don't quote him, but
don't
it's a quote.
Quote me on my quotes.
Cool.
You know, I just use them as like reference. But Picasso, when the camera came out, he threw a fit and he kind of broke down and said like, "What's the point of painting when you can take a photo?" Like, you know, because at that time, like you learned to paint realism, and you learn how to paint well.
Yeah.
And
is that why he got into the abstract?
And that's where abstraction and cubism came, because it wasn't about just painting the portrait anymore. It was about painting the feelings and like painting what he saw and felt from those women or whoever he painted. And I think we're getting to that point again now. And I think now the visual arts, musical arts, expressive arts of whatsoever.
You can do so much on a computer now, you know?
Exactly, and with a phone, everybody's got a phone, everybody's got a camera.
Yeah.
So now it's hard to kind of be a photographer when everybody takes photos.
Yeah.
You know, and even with being a painter, you know, paintings, like everybody can paint now. You can paint on a computer. You don't even need paints anymore to paint.
No, you use your iPad and you color it in the lines perfectly.
So I think that's where I'm bringing it back down to like these mixed medias and expressive pieces where like you can't make this stuff on an iPad.
Yeah.
And you can't take these types of pictures, you know, of whatever you made on a computer, because the mixing of the media is how you get these results.
Yeah.
And get these experimentations, you know, like
you want to expose people to art again? You want people
that's
to,
what I think I want to do.
You think it's getting too far away from it? You think maybe there's going to be less artists in the future than there are now because of the way things are going. People want to be computer scientists. People want to.
I don't think
people
there's
want
going
to
be less artists because there's always be those
yeah,
people.
that's true. That's true. There's always people that want to express.
I just think it's that vision and it's that visual voice, and I would like to be a part of that for, my life. Like I want people to see my work and say, hey, like he's got an eye, for what he's doing. And you look at like Jean-Michel Basquiat, and like he was very primitive with like his painting techniques, and it was very tribal. Tribal, that's not a good word. Like, I don't know why. Yeah, primitive is the best word to use.
Okay.
Primitive,
Okay, that's cool.
because it's aggressive and jagged. But like the reason like that was so popular or was effective at the time was because pop art was just around the corner too. And pop art was the exact opposite. It was very clean and precise, and like his paintings worked well, and I think they were successful because he had that primitive approach and he had that chaotic approach, and there was a lot of things in his work that you couldn't replicate. It just came with the process. And I think art, or visual arts especially, is getting back to that primitive state where it's not about just painting portraits anymore, because everybody takes their selfies every day, which are portraits. Like, like everybody does that, or not everybody, but that's what people do. So I think
it's convenient. It's there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a front camera now. Every phone's got a front camera. So I think it's getting back to that more expressive state. And to answer your question too, I think the reason I've been drawing since I was a child was because it was a way for me to express myself. I've never been the best at explaining to people how I feel or what I'm thinking, but I could paint a picture and be like, yeah, that's how I'm feeling.
Yeah, I think that's because everyone has their own way, right? And
Absolutely.
like writers have that. I mean, everyone has an outlet, right? So writers, that's how they do it, and music, that's how they do it. They don't know how. It's just the way they know how, and they get those things out. So I kind of want to pull it back because I'll be a little bit selfish here on my end, not in a bad way, but like to me myself, what I've really admired were people during the Renaissance, right? People that were multifaceted, right? They could paint, they could do music. They had like Da Vinci, for example, right? Yeah. He was an inventor. He was an artist. He was a biologist. He dissected animals and drew them. He was a great artist. I've always admired people that have skills that might not be great in individual categories, right? But they're good at a lot of different things. They're not great at any of them, though. And so, like, maybe I might be selling myself short, but maybe I don't want to be. For me personally, I like to be good at a lot of things because that's what makes me fulfilled. Yeah. That's just what makes me fulfilled. So, like, if someone's pursuing art, and I don't know if this would be I don't know where I'm going with this, but like if someone's pursuing art but they don't know if they want to dedicate their life to it in a way, like what do you suggest they might do?
Like me.
Yeah, like do they so they just explore it to the fullest they can? Do they go all in? Do they go balls to the wall? Do they I mean, I guess it's hard to say because everyone has their own unique reason why they're doing it. I
think what's the more important question is, what do you want to do with your life?
Yeah.
Who do you want to be? What do you want to do? Like, what are your plans? And that should guide you on what you want to do or where it's going to take you or whatnot. Because for me, I mean, I have some personal goals that I would like to do. I got some places I'd like to see. I'd like some things that I would like to just do in my life that kind of revolve around my work. So for me, I go balls to the wall. Like I put my heart and soul into this.
That's your
route. That's what I do. Like, check out this book. Yeah, look what I just did. Like, yeah. So, for people who don't know what they want to do, I mean, it takes time. Like, you have to do a lot of soul searching. You have to really find yourself. But don't give up because, I mean, it's always going to change too. And already, like, I can tell how my work's changed because when I went to my first year at Heron School of Art, I thought I wanted to be an illustrator. And I wanted to design skateboards and like design graphics for t-shirts. And not that I don't want to do that anymore, but my visual voice has changed and my materials have changed and my aesthetic has changed and my opinions on life have changed. And like, I realized that I'm an interpreter of what's going on. I think Nina Simone has a quote, an artist's job is to represent the times. So as
Wow.
an artist, whether
like
you're
that,
a
man.
musician or a dancer or visual arts,
Yeah.
it's your job to represent what's going on. That's your job. You're an artist. That's what you do.
Yeah.
If you're a manager,
Is that why you like the clippings so
yeah.
much?
So
We haven't talked too much about the book, but
yeah,
he takes a lot of he takes a lot of news clippings. He takes a lot of news clippings. He takes a lot of collage work, and he incorporates that into his own style. And
yeah,
we were talking earlier about this a little bit, but times have changed a lot, a
Yes.
shit ton. And by you looking at all those magazines, by you looking at what's been happening throughout 50, 60, 70 years, you've been able to see yourself what's changed and then interpret it.
It's an interesting feeling. So for those who don't know, I use Life magazines that I buy from flea markets, and I think the earliest one I have dating back is like the 1930s, going up to 1990s. I try not to get any past 2000s just because they're, I don't want to say too relevant, but just not what I'm looking for. But it's crazy that a lot of the material and stuff that I find in there is repetitive, and throughout the decades of Life magazines that I have, you see reoccurring topics or reoccurring subjects or just reoccurring imagery, especially, and it kind of just goes to show you like what's going on here in America, like just what's happening in our culture and what's going on. And I like to use those imagery and those clippings, not only for like the aesthetic and like the view that it creates, but for the mentality, I guess, that like it takes to understand that imagery. I don't know if that made sense, but yeah. So I do enjoy using little collages and clips and just Mod Podging those together really crappily, because I think it
I feel like all the clips that you take from older magazines, they kind of add a sense of irony to like your work.
it's almost nostalgic.
Yeah.
But I'm
Because
talking about relevant terms.
So like, that's the irony in it.
Yeah.
You know how like different things were, and how you can take things from like the 30s, 40s, 50s, etc., and like put them into like current day situations.
Yeah.
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 You don't see many
I mean,
Marlboro
same
Camel
old.
Joe ads anymore.
Yeah, you
Never.
don't.
Like
I did.
things like that.
Yeah.
Like, just you see a lot of that type of work in your collages.
Yeah.
That just like kind of go to show how like ironic life can be. Like just because things were doesn't mean they are, in a way.
Yeah. I think another reason I enjoy using this like imagery is just the fact that like not only do I recognize like what I'm doing or what I'm making, but the fact that I'm using a photo or collages or imagery from years back, it automatically applies to a different generation. It applies to the people who lived in that generation, or it applies to the people that saw that or knew what that imagery was or that character or that person. It's just the fact that I could put together this collage of stuff that I took out of a 1970s Life magazine that my parents might say, oh, like I remember that person, or like that little ad, or like whatever. Just the fact that like I can take that material that's dated that long and manipulate it into a contemporary piece, like that's what's up. Like I like that. So
That's
I think
cool.
that's the reason why I don't want to say I only use older Life magazines, but that's where a majority of my material comes from.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know how much time we have left on the cameras and
Yeah,
everything.
dude. Like,
So
we'll
we'll wrap it up, but by the Controlled Chaos, everybody. It's Caleb's
Controlled
book.
Chaos.
He's got a bunch of books up. He's got an Instagram. What's your tag at?
So on Instagram, I am Killer Caleb. One word.
All right, we'll tag
Caleb
it.
with a
I'll
C.
tag it in the
Yeah.
description there.
Yeah.
But you can check out all of his work. I'll be showing some of his work throughout this podcast.
Caleb with a C.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you made it this far through,
Can I say something?
yeah, of course, man.
Right
Caleb
on.
wants the last final word.
Yeah. Real quick, guys. Thanks for watching. If you made it all the way through, thank you. But Controlled Chaos, I'm putting on a solo exhibition next month. It's March 10th from 6 to 9 p.m. I will have some musical production there from this fellow over here, Saul Alvarez. Also from Zach Austin and Javi Ramirez will be producing the soundtrack that night. But it is catered. Crane Bay Event Center is sponsoring it, so free booze, free wine, free snacks, drinks, everything. Just like, it's going to be a party, so if you're free, come out and check it out. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks, Eric.
3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.